More of a team player? I repeated, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. My boss Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, that insufferable smile still plastered across his face. Look, Emma, you're great at what you do. Nobody's denying that. But Jessica, she knows how to work with people. She brings energy to the office. You're just too focused on results. To focus on results. The words echoed in my head as I sat there, gripping the armrests of my chair. 5 years I'd given to this company. 5 years of early mornings, late nights, and sacrificed weekends. I'd single-handedly landed our biggest clients, streamlined our operations, and increased our department's efficiency by 40%. And now I was being passed over for a promotion because I was too focused on results. My name is Emma Chin, and at 32, I learned the hard way that corporate success isn't always about merit. Sometimes it's about playing the game, about knowing whose ego to stroke and whose coffee to fetch. Jessica was certainly good at that. She'd been with the company for barely 2 years, but she'd already mastered the art of taking credit for other people's work while doing virtually none of her own. I watched as Marcus shuffled some papers on his desk, probably expecting me to break down or protest. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a crisp white envelope. I understand, I said, placing the envelope on his desk, and I appreciate you letting me know. Here's my resignation letter. My last day will be in 2 weeks. Marcus's smug smile faltered. This clearly wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Now, Emma, let's not be hasty, just because you didn't get the promotion. It's not hasty, I cut him off, my voice calm but firm. I've given it a lot of thought, and you're right, I am focused on results. That's why I've decided to pursue other opportunities where that quality is valued. What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't just been working on company projects these past 5 years. In my spare time, I'd been building something of my own. Something that would make Marcus' promotion look like the joke it was. As I walked out of his office, I could feel the eyes of my coworkers on me. News traveled fast in our department, and Jessica was probably already planning how to redecorate my cubicle. I kept my head high as I made my way back to my desk, remembering the other piece of paper tucked inside that resignation letter. The one that would make Marcus realize exactly what he was losing. The next 2 weeks were exactly what you'd expect. Jessica pranced around the office like she owned the place, making a show of learning the ropes of her new position. She'd stop by my desk occasionally, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Emma, I hope there are no hard feelings, she said one morning, perching on the edge of my desk. I know you worked really hard for this promotion. I looked up from my computer, where I was methodically downloading copies of all my work files. Not to steal them, I had too much integrity for that, but to ensure I had documentation of everything I contributed to the company. No hard feelings at all, Jessica. I'm sure you'll do great. She smiled, probably thinking I was admitting defeat. She had no idea. The truth was, for the past 3 years, I'd been secretly developing a revolutionary project management system. It had started as a way to keep track of my own work, but it had evolved into something much more powerful. I tested it, refined it, and used it to achieve those results that Marcus found so troublesome. And now, with my resignation letter, I'd included a detailed report showing exactly how much money and time my system had saved the company. The kicker? I'd also included a notice that I'd filed for a patent on the system 6 months ago. It had been approved last week. But that wasn't even the best part. A week into my notice period, I received an email from Robert Chen, no relation, the CEO of our biggest competitor. He'd heard through the grapevine that I was leaving and wanted to meet for coffee. I'd smiled when I saw his name in my inbox. Everything was falling into place exactly as I planned. The meeting with Robert was everything I'd hoped for. He'd been following my work for months, impressed by how I transformed our client relationships and streamlined our processes. He didn't just offer me a job. He offered me a partnership role complete with creative control over my system's implementation across their entire organization. We've been looking for someone like you, Emma, he said, sliding a contract across the table. Someone who understands that results matter. The salary is triple what you're making now, plus equity in the company. I took the contract, my hands steady despite my racing heart. This was what recognition felt like. This was what it felt like to be valued. The day I handed in my security badge, Marcus called me into his office one last time. The smug smile was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like panic. "Emma, we need to talk about this report you included with your resignation letter," he said, holding up the papers with shaking hands. "Why didn't you tell us about this system before?" I sat down, smoothing my skirt as I did. "I tried, Marcus. 3 times in the past year, I requested meetings to discuss implementing new efficiency measures. You said we needed to focus on team dynamics instead." His face paled as he flipped through the pages. But this is revolutionary. The potential savings alone. And you've already patented it." I nodded, enjoying the way his voice cracked. "I have, and I've accepted a position with Chen Industries. They're very excited about implementing the system company-wide." Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his mistake finally hitting him. "Chen Industries? Our biggest competitor. Emma, you can't. What about loyalty to the company?" "Loyalty?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Like the loyalty you showed me when you promoted Jessica. Like the loyalty you showed when you dismissed every suggestion I made because I wasn't enough of a team player?" I stood up, straightening my jacket. "You know what the funny thing is, Marcus? If you looked past your biases, if you actually paid attention to the results I was achieving instead of focusing on who brought you coffee or laughed at your jokes, none of this would be happening. But you didn't. And now Chin Industries is going to have an advantage that you can't match." "We'll match any offer they made," he said quickly, desperation creeping into his voice. "We'll promote you to senior director. Just don't go to Chen." I shook my head, almost pitying him. "It's not about the money or the title, Marcus. It's about respect. It's about recognizing value, and you've made it very clear where you stand on that." As I walked out of his office for the last time, I heard him frantically dialing his phone, probably calling the executive team to figure out damage control. But it was too late. The patent was mine, the new job was signed, and Jessica. Well, Jessica would soon learn that taking credit for other people's work only gets you so far when you have to actually deliver results. That evening, as I packed up my desk, I found a post-it note stuck to my monitor. It was from Jessica, written in her flowing script. "Sorry to see you go. Keep in touch." I smiled as I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. Oh, she'd be hearing about me all right. The whole industry would be. My first day at Chin Industries felt like stepping into a different world. Instead of a cramped cubicle, I had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. My name was etched on a sleek glass nameplate. Emma Chen, Director of Operations and Strategic Innovation. But the real difference wasn't in the office or the title. It was in how people treated me. Robert Chen, the CEO, had called an all-hands meeting to introduce me. Standing at the front of the conference room, he didn't just announce my position. He outlined my achievements, explained the value of my management system, and made it clear that I would have full authority to implement changes across the organization. "Emma isn't just joining our team," he said, his voice carrying across the packed room. "She's bringing with her a revolutionary approach to project management that will transform how we operate. I expect everyone to give her their full cooperation." The contrast to my old company couldn't have been more stark. There, I'd been the quiet workhorse, the one who got things done but was never acknowledged. Here, I was being celebrated for exactly what Marcus had dismissed, my focus on results. But the real satisfaction came 3 months later. I was in the middle of a team meeting when my phone buzzed with a text from my old colleague, David. "You might want to check the industry news," it read. "Something big just dropped about Meridian Corp." Meridian Corp, my old company. I excused myself from the meeting and hurried back to my office, pulling up the industry news site on my computer. The headline made me catch my breath. "Meridian Corp shares preliminary 30% following disastrous coworker I noise. The article detailed how Meridian had lost 3 major clients in the past quarter, with several others threatening to follow. Project delays had skyrocketed, costs had spiraled out of control, and efficiency metrics had dropped to all-time lows. The company's stock was in freefall. As I scrolled through the article, one quote caught my eye. It was from Thomas Reynolds, one of our biggest former clients. "The quality of service at Meridian has deteriorated significantly in recent months. Projects that used to be completed smoothly are now constantly delayed. It's like they've completely lost their organizational structure." I couldn't help but smile. Those smooth-running projects. They'd all been managed through my system. The organizational structure they'd lost. That was the framework I built over 5 years, the one Marcus had never bothered to understand. My phone buzzed again. Another text from David. Jessica's having a complete meltdown. She can't handle the workload, and Marcus is starting to realize she has no idea what she's doing. I set my phone down, thinking about the irony of it all. Jessica, who'd spent 2 years taking credit for other people's work, was finally being forced to produce results on her own. And Marcus, who'd chosen style over substance, was watching his department crumble. But I had bigger things to focus on. At Chen Industries, my system was already showing remarkable results. Project completion times had been cut in half, client satisfaction scores were at record highs, and our efficiency metrics were off the charts. Robert had already approved my proposal to expand the system company-wide, and we were in talks with several major clients who wanted to license the technology. One morning, about 6 months after I'd left Meridian, I walked into my office to find Robert waiting for me, a newspaper in his hands. "Have you seen this?" he asked, holding it up. The headline read, "Meridian QRP CEO STPS Gallon Amad Continuing Crisis." I nodded, taking the paper from him. I saw the announcement. "Word is they're completely restructuring the company," Robert said, watching my reaction carefully. The board finally realized how badly they'd mismanaged their talent. Apparently, they tried to recreate your system, but without the underlying architecture. It wouldn't work, I finished for him. The system isn't just about the software or the processes. It's about understanding how all the pieces fit together. Robert smiled, the kind of smile that said he knew exactly what he had in me. "Which is why we're announcing your promotion to Executive Vice President next week." The board voted unanimously. They've seen what you've done here in just 6 months, and they want more. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This was what recognition felt like. This was what it meant to be valued for your actual contributions, not just your ability to play office politics. Later that day, I received an unexpected email. It was from Marcus. "Emma, I hope this finds you well. I'm sure you've heard about the changes at Meridian. I wanted to reach out and acknowledge that I made a massive mistake in not recognizing your value to the company. The system you built was the backbone of our success, and we didn't realize it until it was gone. I'm no longer with Meridian. The board asked for my resignation last week. Before I left, I made sure they knew that this could have been avoided if we listened to you. Jessica resigned a month ago. Turns out managing actual projects is a lot harder than taking credit for other people's work. I know it's too late to fix things, but I wanted you to know that you were right. Results do matter. I just wish I'd seen that sooner. Best regards, Marcus." I read the email twice, letting the words sink in. There was a time when this kind of acknowledgement would have meant everything to me. Now, sitting in my executive office at Chen Industries, preparing for another board meeting where my ideas would be heard and valued, it felt like a footnote in a story that had already moved on. I clicked reply and typed a simple response. "Marcus, thank you for your email. You're right, results do matter. I hope you find success in your future endeavors. Best, Emma." As I hit send, I glanced at the framed patent certificate hanging on my wall, the one for my management system. Below it was a fresh plaque commemorating our record-breaking quarter, and beside that, a news article featuring me as one of the industry's rising stars. I thought about how far I'd come from that day in Marcus's office, when he told me I was too focused on results. That criticism had turned out to be the greatest compliment he could have given me. Because here, in my new role with my new team, those results were changing the industry. The next morning, I called a team meeting. As I looked around the conference room at the eager faces, people who respected me, who valued my input, who were excited to learn from me, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. "Today," I began, "we're going to talk about our next big project. But first, I want to share a story about the importance of recognizing value, not just in systems or processes, but in people." And as I spoke, I could see understanding dawn in their eyes. They got it. They understood that success isn't just about playing the game or being a team player. It's about creating real value and having the courage to stand by your convictions. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward, about building something better than what you left behind. Marcus, Jessica, and Meridian Corp had taught me that valuable lesson, even if they hadn't meant to. As I drove home that evening, I passed by the Meridian Corp building. The logo that once seemed so imposing now looked tired and dated. A for lease sign hung in one of the windows. They were downsizing, another casualty of their poor management decisions. But I didn't feel any triumph at their downfall. Instead, I felt grateful. Grateful that they had underestimated me, grateful that they had pushed me away, grateful that they had forced me to prove my worth not just to them, but to myself. Because sometimes the biggest opportunities come disguised as rejection. Sometimes being too focused on results is exactly what you need to be. And sometimes the best response to someone undervaluing you is to show them exactly what they missed out on. My phone buzzed. Another text from David. Meridian's board is asking about you. They want to know if you consider coming back as CEO. I smiled as I typed my response. Thanks, but I'm exactly where I need to be. And I was, because success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about standing firm in your convictions, even when others doubt you. It's about knowing your worth and not settling for less. As I pulled into my driveway, I thought about all the other Emmas out there, talented people being overlooked because they were too focused on results. Maybe my story would inspire them to stand their ground, to believe in their value, to create their own opportunities. After all, sometimes the best way to handle rejection is to turn it into rocket fuel, to use it as motivation to build something better, something stronger, something that makes them realize exactly what they lost. And as I sat down at my home office to review the latest proposals for expanding our system globally, I couldn't help but smile. Because in the end, Marcus had been right about one thing. I was too focused on results, and that focus had taken me exactly where I needed to be.
The day I lost my company was the day I finally understood why our mother had always warned me about my sister Jennifer. Keep your success quiet, Mom would say. Your sister, she can't stand seeing others do better than her. I should have listened. Instead, I'd spent the last 5 years building my tech startup from nothing, working endless hours in our tiny office space, living on ramen and coffee while Jennifer lived the high life on our parents' money. I'd wanted to prove I could make it on my own, without the family fortune. The company, Data Stream Solutions, had finally started turning a profit. We'd landed major contracts, built a solid team of 30 employees, and were on the verge of a breakthrough deal that would put us on the map. That's when Jennifer suddenly showed interest in my work. "Oh, Emily, I had no idea your little project was doing so well." She'd gushed over our monthly family dinner. "You should let me help. I have so many connections from business school." I'd hesitated. Jennifer had never shown interest in my work before. She'd always dismissed it as my cute little hobby, while she pursued her MBA at Harvard and dated a string of wealthy men. But she was my sister, and maybe, I thought foolishly, she was finally seeing me as an equal. "Sure," I'd said. "We could use some investment connections." The smile that crossed her face should have warned me. It was the same smile she'd worn at age 12, when she'd convinced our parents that I'd broken her expensive doll, when she'd actually done it herself. Jennifer moved fast. Within weeks, she'd arranged meetings with interested investors. She insisted on handling the negotiations herself. "You're so good at the technical side, Em," she'd said sweetly. "Let me handle the business part. It's what I went to Harvard for, after all." Before I knew it, she'd orchestrated a complex investment deal that diluted my ownership. The paperwork was dense, full of legal terms I didn't fully understand. When I'd expressed concern, she'd waved it off. "It's standard stuff, Em. Don't you trust your own sister? Besides, we can't afford fancy lawyers right now. The company needs this investment." I signed. God, I was such a fool. This morning, exactly 3 months after that signing, I walked into our office to find the locks changed. Jennifer stood in the lobby with 2 security guards and a smirking man I recognized as Gerald Thompson, one of our new board members. "What's going on?" I demanded. "Board meeting this morning," Jennifer said, examining her perfectly manicured nails. "We voted to restructure the company leadership." "Restructure? What are you talking about?" "You've been removed as CEO," Gerald stated flatly. "The board feels the company needs more experienced leadership." My head spun. "You can't do that. I founded this company." "Actually, we can." Jennifer's smile turned cruel. "Check the paperwork you signed, dear sister. The investment terms were quite clear about board authority. You should have read more carefully." "You're taking my company?" My voice cracked. "My own sister." "Oh, don't be so dramatic." Jennifer rolled her eyes. "This is business. The company needs real leadership, not some self-taught programmer playing entrepreneur. I mean, you don't even have an MBA. I built this company from nothing, and now it's time for someone qualified to take it to the next level." She gestured to the security guards. "Please escort Ms. Walker out. She's no longer authorized to be on the premises." I stood there shocked as my own employees watched me being led out. People I'd hired, trained, worked alongside, they all turned away, avoiding my eyes. Only my assistant Maria dared to speak up. "This isn't right," she said firmly. "Emily built this company." "And you're fired too," Jennifer snapped. "Clear out your desk." Outside, Maria found me sitting on a bench, staring blankly at the building I had worked so hard to fill with dreams and innovation. "I'm so sorry, Emily," she said, sitting beside me. "I had no idea this was coming." "Neither did I," I whispered. "How could she do this? She's my sister." Maria hesitated. "There's something you should know. I overheard Jennifer on the phone last week. She's planning to sell the company to tech giant. They're announcing the acquisition next month." My heart stopped. Tech giant, our biggest competitor. They tried to buy us out last year, but I'd refused. Our technology was better, more innovative. They couldn't replicate it, so they wanted to acquire it. And now my sister was going to hand it to them. She planned this. I realized. All of it. The investment, the board seats, it was all to get control, so she could sell to tech giant. "The deal's worth millions," Maria confirmed. "Jennifer stands to make a fortune as majority shareholder." I laughed bitterly. Finally beat me at something, didn't she? That's all she's ever cared about. My phone buzzed. A text from our mother. "Just heard from Jennifer. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I tried to warn you." Another buzz. This time from our father. "Be reasonable, Emily. Jennifer has the experience for this. Don't make a scene." Of course they take her side. They always had. "What will you do?" Maria asked softly. I stood up, something shifting inside me. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold clarity. Jennifer thought she'd won, thought she'd taken everything. But there was something she didn't know, something no one knew. "Maria," I said quietly, "remember that lease paperwork you notarized for me last year?" She frowned. "For the building?" "Yes, it was under that holding company name you used. Hidden something?" "Hidden Valley Holdings." I smiled for the first time that day. "A completely separate company from DataStream. One that owns this entire building." Maria's eyes widened. "You mean?" Jennifer was so focused on taking the company, she never bothered to check who owned the actual building. I pulled out my phone. Time to make some calls, starting with the property management company. "What are you going to do?" I thought about Jennifer's smirk. about all the times she put me down, about how she finally shown her true colors. I'm going to teach my dear sister a lesson about reading the fine print. I didn't know then that my revenge would be even sweeter than I imagined. That within 24 hours, Jennifer's perfect plan would start unraveling in ways she never saw coming. And it would all start with 4 simple words from my property manager. "Consider it done, Mom." I spent that night in my apartment, reviewing every document I had. The building purchase had been my secret safety net. I'd used my personal savings and a private loan to buy it through Hidden Valley Holdings when it went up for sale last year. The previous owner had been desperate for a quick sale, and I'd seen the potential. Now that decision would save everything. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I called the property management company. "Ms. Walker," my manager Tom greeted me. "I've prepared everything as requested. Are you sure about this? It's aggressive." They took my company, Tom, through fraud and manipulation. Yes, I'm sure. By 8 a.m., everything was in place. I sat in a coffee shop across the street, watching as DataStream's employees arrived for work. Jennifer's car pulled up at 8:30, a brand new Mercedes she probably already bought with her anticipated windfall. At exactly 9 a.m., Tom's team moved in. First, they shut off the building's air conditioning. It was mid-July, and temperatures were already climbing. Then came the elevator maintenance, emergency repairs that couldn't be delayed. The parking garage also needed immediate inspection, forcing everyone to move their cars to street parking. By 10 a.m., Jennifer was calling the building management office in a rage. I could imagine her face getting redder by the minute as she learned that all maintenance requests now had to go through Hidden Valley Holdings, a company she'd never heard of. At noon, as the building temperature reached uncomfortable levels, Tom walked into DataStream's office with a notice. The rent was being raised significantly, effective immediately. My phone rang. "Jennifer." "What did you do?" she demanded without preamble. "Hello, sister dear. Having building troubles. This is ridiculous. They're trying to triple our rent, and nothing works. Sounds frustrating," I said calmly. "You know, kind of like having your company stolen by your own sister." Silence. Then, You own the building?" Hidden Valley Holdings owns the building, and as the CEO of Hidden Valley Holdings, I get to make certain decisions, like rent adjustments, maintenance schedules, lease terms. You can't do this. We have a lease. Actually, DataStream's lease has a change of control clause. Any significant ownership change triggers a lease review. You should have read the fine print, sis. Isn't that what they taught you at Harvard? I heard her sputtering. "I'll have our lawyers." "Do what?" "The lease is ironclad. I had it reviewed by 3 separate law firms. You can fight it, but that will take months." "How long do you think your employees will stay in a building with no air conditioning? How will that affect your tech giant deal?" Dead silence. "Oh yes," I continued sweetly. "Maria told me about that. Selling my technology to our biggest competitor. Classy move, Jennifer." "You're bluffing," she said, but I heard the fear in her voice. "You couldn't afford this building. Remember when Mom and Dad offered to buy me a luxury car for graduation like they did for you? I asked for the money instead, invested it, added my savings from 5 years of living frugally while building my company. You were so busy looking down on my little project that you never noticed I was planning ahead." Just then, I saw Gerald Thompson storming out of the building, sweat staining his expensive suit. More employees followed, fanning themselves with papers. "Your board meeting this afternoon might be uncomfortable," I noted. The conference room gets especially warm around 3 p.m., and the backup generators only power essential systems, no climate control. What do you want? Jennifer's voice was tight with fury. A meeting. You, me, the board, and the lawyers I've hired. 1 hour. I'll have the air conditioning restored for that. And if I refuse, then enjoy explaining to TechGiant why their expensive new acquisition is about to be homeless. I'm sure they'll understand. The meeting was beautiful chaos. My lawyers presented evidence of Jennifer's manipulation, including emails Maria had saved showing the premeditated plan to seize control. The board members, sweating in their suits, listened with growing alarm as they realized their own liability in the scheme. This is grounds for criminal charges, my lawyer stated calmly. Fraud, corporate espionage, conspiracy. What do you want? Gerald Thompson demanded, pulling at his wilted collar. I laid out my terms. Immediate restoration of my position as CEO. Jennifer and her conspirators to surrender their shares. A new board of my choosing. You're crazy. Jennifer stood up. Daddy won't let. Dad's not here. I cut her off. And he can't help. Unless he wants to explain to his country club friends how his Harvard-educated daughter committed corporate fraud. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, I had my company back. Jennifer stormed out, already on the phone with our parents. But for once, they couldn't fix this for her. The next few weeks were a blur of restructuring and damage control. Most employees were relieved to have me back. Apparently, Jennifer's brief leadership had been chaotic and demoralizing. Maria got a promotion to chief of staff. A month later, I sat in my restored office, reviewing acquisition offers, not from TechGiant, but from more ethical competitors who'd heard about our technology. The numbers were staggering. My phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. Daddy's making me move to our London office. Happy now? I smiled, remembering all the times she'd lorded her achievements over me, all the times she dismissed my dreams. Then I typed, actually, yes, enjoy London. By the way, the building's air conditioning works perfectly now. She didn't reply. That evening, as I walked to my car, still the same modest hybrid I'd always driven, I passed Jennifer's empty parking spot. The sign now read, reserved for CEO, Emily Walker. My phone buzzed again. Mom, your sister's devastated. Can't you let this go? I thought about it, about all the years of competition and manipulation, about Jennifer's smirk as she had security escort me out. No, I texted back, but I hear London's lovely this time of year. Turning off my phone, I drove home to my apartment, the same one I'd lived in while building my company from scratch. I could afford better now, but I liked it. It reminded me of where I'd started and how far I'd come. On my desk sat a framed quote I'd hung the day after getting my company back. Success is the best revenge. Below it, I'd added my own line, but owning the building helps too. Some people say success changes you, but sometimes it just shows who you've been all along. Jennifer had always seen me as the little sister she could manipulate and control. She never understood that while she was focused on appearances and status, I was building something real. A company, a reputation, and yes, a backup plan. Now she had lots of time to think about that, from London. As for me, I had a company to run, and this time I knew exactly who to trust. Spoiler alert, it wasn't family.
The first email arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in my small apartment in Bangkok, sipping coffee and checking messages before heading to teach my English class. The subject line caught my eye. Condolences for your family's loss. Confused, I opened it. The message was from an old family friend. Dear Rebecca, I just heard about Sarah's tragic accident in Thailand. What a devastating loss. Sarah was such a bright light, taken far too soon. Please know your family is in my thoughts during this difficult time. I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold beside me. Sarah, they were talking about me. I was Sarah Mitchell, very much alive and definitely not involved in any accidents. More emails followed, each one expressing sympathy for my apparent death. Old classmates, distant relatives, former colleagues, all offering condolences to my family, particularly my sister Rebecca. My hands shook as I called my best friend Emma back home in Boston. Emma, something weird is happening, I said as soon as she picked up. I'm getting condolence emails about my own death. There was a long pause. Sarah, she said slowly, Rebecca told everyone you died in a motorcycle accident 2 weeks ago. She said you were traveling in rural Thailand and her voice cracked. Oh my God, you're alive. You're actually alive. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own sister had declared me dead. Why would she do this? I whispered, though deep down, I already knew the answer. Our grandmother had passed away 6 months ago, leaving behind a substantial inheritance. The money was to be split equally between Rebecca and me, but there was a catch. We could only access our portions on our 30th birthdays. Rebecca had turned 30 last month. I wouldn't for another year. Sarah, Emma said gently, Rebecca claimed your portion of the inheritance. She had some lawyer declare you legally dead and provided documentation of your accident. The money was released to her last week. I sat down hard, my legs giving out beneath me. The inheritance was significant, nearly $2 million each. Rebecca had always been driven by money, always scheming for more, but this was a new low. Our relationship had been strained for years. Growing up, Rebecca was the perfect daughter, straight A's, prestigious internships, the right friends, the right clothes. I was the dreamer, the one who wanted to travel, to teach, to experience life beyond our wealthy Boston suburb. Our parents didn't understand my choices, but our grandmother did. She was the one who encouraged me to follow my heart, who supported my decision to teach English abroad. She must have known you'd find out eventually, Emma continued. What was she thinking? I looked around my modest apartment, at the photos on my walls capturing my adventures across Southeast Asia, at the stack of papers from my students. I built this life on my own terms, proud of choosing passion over money. But Rebecca had just stolen $2 million from me, and she'd done it by erasing my existence. Sarah? Emma prompted when I didn't respond. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath, my shock giving way to something colder, more calculated. Nothing, I said finally. Not yet. What do you mean? Rebecca thinks she's won. She thinks I'm too far away, too disconnected from home to find out or fight back. So I'm going to let her keep thinking that. Sarah. She's getting married in 3 months, right? Big society wedding at the Four Seasons. Yes, but... Perfect. I felt a smile spread across my face, though there was no warmth in it. I think it's time for a family reunion. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. I took a leave of absence from my teaching position, citing a family emergency. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home. Not my parents, not my old friends, no one except Emma. As far as the world was concerned, Sarah Mitchell was still dead. I spent hours combing through social media, tracking Rebecca's moves. She was living large with my inheritance, posting photos of expensive shopping trips and lavish parties. The wedding preparations were in full swing, with every detail meticulously documented online. She'd always wanted to be Boston's social queen, and now she had the money to make it happen. But what hit hardest were the posts about me. The carefully worded tribute to her beloved sister, taken too soon. The tearful remembrance at a charity event she'd organized in my memory. She was playing the grieving sister to perfection, using my death to boost her social standing even as she spent my money. Look at this, I said to Emma during one of our late-night video calls, sharing my screen to show her Rebecca's latest Instagram post. It was a photo of her trying on her wedding dress, caption reading, "Wish you were here to be my maid of honor, sister. I know you're watching from above." Emma made a disgusted sound. She's unbelievable. And your parents? They're just going along with this. I felt the familiar ache in my chest. They probably think it's easier this way. They never approved of my choices anyway. Having a dead daughter who died following her dreams probably fits their narrative better than a living one who disappointed them. Sarah, it's fine, I cut her off. None of that matters now. What matters is making sure Rebecca's perfect wedding has exactly the dramatic ending it deserves. I spent the next month laying low in Emma's apartment on the outskirts of Boston, venturing out only in disguise. I watched from afar as Rebecca's wedding drew closer, as she played the role of grieving sister and blushing bride with equal skill. Every time I saw her photo in the local society pages, every time I read another sympathetic comment about her loss, my resolve strengthened. The weekend before the wedding, I sat with Emma in her living room, finalizing the details of my plan. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, watching me scroll through the wedding website one last time. "It's not too late to handle this legally instead." I shook my head. She didn't just steal my money, Emma. She stole my identity, my existence. She turned me into a tragic story she could use for sympathy. If I handle this legally, she'll find some way to spin it, some way to make herself the victim. No, she needs to face what she did publicly in front of everyone who matters to her. Emma was quiet for a moment. "Your parents will be there," she said finally. "Are you ready for that?" I closed my laptop, thinking about the last time I'd seen them, 3 years ago before I left for Thailand. The disappointment in their eyes, the tight smiles, the passive-aggressive comments about wasting my potential. "They're as much a part of this as she is," I said quietly. They could have stopped her, questioned her story, done something. Instead, they probably helped her do this. They all decided it was easier if I was dead than living a life they didn't approve of. Well, they're about to learn that I'm very much alive, and I'm done letting them write my story. The morning of Rebecca's wedding dawned bright and clear. I stood in Emma's bathroom, staring at my reflection as I carefully applied my makeup. I'd chosen my outfit meticulously, a deep blue dress that I knew would photograph well. After all, this was going to be a moment people would remember. "The ceremony starts at 2, Emma said, leaning against the doorframe. "Are you sure you don't want me to go in with you?" I shook my head, pinning back my hair. "No, you being there would tip them off. I need the element of surprise. Just be ready with the car for a quick getaway if things get ugly." The Four Seasons Boston was decked out in full wedding splendor when I arrived. White flowers everywhere, champagne flowing, Boston's elite mingling in their finest. I slipped in through a side entrance, using the skills I'd learned from years of navigating crowded Bangkok streets to move unnoticed through the chaos of pre-wedding preparations. I found a quiet corner in the back of the ballroom where the ceremony would take place, partially hidden behind a massive flower arrangement. From there, I could see everything. The elaborate arch where Rebecca would say her vows, the rows of expensive chairs filled with Boston's social elite, the string quartet warming up in the corner. My parents arrived early, of course. Mom in an expensive designer dress, Dad looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. They worked the room like professionals, accepting congratulations and sympathy in equal measure. "Such a happy day, though bittersweet without Sarah," I heard my mother say to someone, her voice carrying just the right note of practiced grief. Then I saw Rebecca. She was in the doorway, resplendent in white, surrounded by her bridesmaids. The dress probably cost more than I made in a year teaching, probably paid for with my money, I thought bitterly. She was beaming, basking in the attention, every inch the perfect bride. Places, everyone. The wedding planner called out, "We're starting in 5 minutes." I watched as guests hurried to their seats as the string quartet began the processional music as Rebecca's bridesmaids lined up in their matching pink dresses. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was firm. The ceremony began. I let Rebecca have her moment, let her walk down the aisle on our father's arm, let her take her place under the flower arch. I waited as the officiant welcomed everyone, as he spoke about love and commitment and new beginnings. Then he said the words I've been waiting for. "If anyone knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." I stepped out from behind the flowers. "I have a reason," I said, my voice clear and strong. "My sister declared me dead to steal my inheritance." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca's face went white as she turned toward my voice. The bouquet slipped from her hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Around us, guests were frozen in confusion, murmuring and craning their necks to see what was happening. "Sarah?" My mother whispered, her perfectly made-up face crumpling in shock. Hello, family, I said, walking slowly down the aisle. Sorry I'm late. Being dead really throws off your schedule. Rebecca's fiancé, Mark, was looking between us in confusion. What's going on? He asked. Rebecca, what is she talking about? I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. Oh, she didn't tell you. Your bride had me declared legally dead 2 months ago. Fabricated documents about a motorcycle accident in Thailand. Also, she could claim my portion of our grandmother's inheritance early, $2 million. That's what my life was worth to her. The murmuring grew louder. I could see phones coming out, people recording. Rebecca's perfect society wedding was quickly becoming a different kind of social media sensation. That's not true. Rebecca stammered, but her voice was weak. We all thought. You thought what? I demanded, now standing just feet from her. That I wouldn't find out, that I was so far away, so disconnected from home that you could just erase me. Take what was mine and build your perfect life on top of it. Sarah, my father stepped forward, his face red. This is hardly the time or place. When would be a better time, Dad? I cut him off. When she's finished spending my money? When she's solidified her position as Boston's grieving socialite? Or maybe after she's done playing the tragic sister who lost her sibling to her reckless lifestyle? I turned back to Rebecca, who seemed to be shrinking in her expensive white dress. You know what the worst part is? You didn't just steal my money. You stole my existence. You turned me into a story, a tragic cautionary tale you could use for sympathy. Well, surprise. I'm not a story. I'm not a tragedy. I'm your sister, and I'm very much alive. The ballroom had erupted into chaos. Guests were whispering frantically, phones were recording everything, and Rebecca's perfect wedding was unraveling thread by thread. Mark. Rebecca turned to her fiancé, reaching for his hand. But he stepped back, looking at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Did you do this? He asked quietly. Did you really have your own sister declared dead for money? Rebecca's silence was all the answer he needed. He turned and walked away, ignoring her calls after him. I watched as my sister's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. The perfect bride, the perfect daughter, the perfect society woman. All of it washing away in a tide of shocked whispers and accusatory stares. I have proof, I announced to the room, pulling out my phone. Emails, documents, everything showing exactly what she did. I've already sent it to the police and our family lawyer. But I thought everyone here deserved to know exactly who they were celebrating today. My mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Sarah, please, she begged. We can talk about this privately, as a family. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a strange mix of pity and anger. We stopped being a family the moment you decided it was easier to believe I was dead than accept who I really am. The aftermath of Rebecca's wedding was exactly the kind of social scandal that Boston's elite would gossip about for years. I watched from Emma's apartment as the story exploded across social media, local news, and society cages. Bride's dead sister Tirashi's DWDDIMG read one headline. Socialite ACCU's ED of FAKing sister's death for in he or ITNC declared another. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from old acquaintances, distant relatives, and even journalists seeking comments. I ignored most of them, speaking only through the family lawyer as we began the process of reclaiming my inheritance and pressing charges for fraud. The police want to question Rebecca, Emma told me over coffee the morning after the wedding. Apparently, she's not answering her phone. I scrolled through my own phone, looking at a photo someone had captured of Rebecca's face the moment she saw me. The shock, the fear, the realization that her perfect facade was crumbling. It was all there, preserved forever. She's probably hiding at our parents' house, I said, setting my phone down. That's where she always ran when things went wrong. I was right. Later that day, our family lawyer confirmed that Rebecca was indeed holed up in our childhood home, refusing to speak to anyone except our parents. The money she claimed from my death had been frozen, and criminal charges were pending. A week after the wedding, I received an unexpected visitor at Emma's apartment. It was Mark, Rebecca's almost husband. I had to see you, he said, standing awkwardly in Emma's living room. I needed to understand. Did you know? Before the wedding, did you know what kind of person she was? I studied him carefully. He looked tired, defeated, nothing like the confident groom from the wedding. No, I answered honestly. I knew she was ambitious, materialistic even, but this, having me declared dead? I never thought she'd go that far. He nodded slowly. I've called off the engagement permanently, he said. I can't be with someone who would do something like that to their own sister. After he left, I sat on Emma's couch, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The years of strained family dynamics, the pressure to conform, the gradual erosion of sisterly love until it became something cold and transactional. My parents finally reached out 2 weeks after the wedding. They wanted to meet, to talk things through as a family. I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown. They looked older than I remembered, more fragile somehow. Mom's hands shook as she stirred her untouched coffee. Dad couldn't quite meet my eyes. We didn't know, Mom started, her voice barely above a whisper, about what Rebecca did. We really thought, that I died. I finished for her. And you didn't think to verify that? To ask questions? To maybe try calling me? We tried calling your old number, Dad defended weakly. It didn't work. I changed my number 2 years ago, I said. Did you try email? Social media? My school in Bangkok? Or was it just easier to believe I was dead? They exchanged glances, and I saw the truth in their silence. They had accepted Rebecca's story because it fit their narrative. The wayward daughter meeting a tragic end, proving them right about all their warnings and criticisms. What's going to happen to Rebecca? Mom asked finally. That's up to the police and the district attorney, I replied. The fraud she committed. It's serious. She could face jail time. Dad's face crumpled. She's your sister, he pleaded. Surely you don't want. Don't? I cut him off sharply. Don't ask me to protect her. She tried to erase me from existence for money. She doesn't get to play the sister card now. I stood up, gathering my things. I'm heading back to Bangkok next week, I told them. I have a life there, students who depend on me. The lawyer will handle everything else. You're leaving? Mom's voice cracked. But we just got you back. I looked at them both, feeling a strange mix of pity and resignation. You never lost me, I said quietly. You just never accepted who I really was. The legal proceedings moved quickly. Rebecca avoided jail time but was ordered to repay every cent she'd taken, plus substantial penalties. She was also required to make public apologies and correct every false statement she'd made about my death. I watched from Bangkok as she made these apologies, looking small and subdued in front of cameras. Nothing like the confident socialite she'd once been. Her perfect world had crumbled, taking her reputation with it. 6 months later, I received an email from Rebecca. It was long, filled with apologies and explanations, talking about therapy and realizations and regret. She wrote about growing up in my shadow. Ironic, given how I'd always felt overshadowed by her, and how the pressure to maintain her perfect image had twisted her into someone she didn't recognize. I read it several times but didn't respond. Maybe someday we'd find a way to rebuild some kind of relationship, but for now, the distance felt right. I had my life in Bangkok, my students, my freedom. And most importantly, I had myself, alive, whole, and unwilling to be erased. Yesterday, I received another wedding invitation. Not for a society wedding at the Four Seasons this time, but for Emma's small ceremony on the beach. She'd written a note on it. This time, you better be there, alive and in person. I smiled as I marked the date in my calendar. Some bridges had burned beyond repair, but others had grown stronger through this ordeal. I had learned who truly cared about me, not as a society daughter or a tragic story, but as myself. In the end, Rebecca's attempt to erase me had only made me more real, more solid in who I was. She could try to write my ending, but instead she had only helped me begin a new chapter, one where I was the author of my own story. As I sit here in my Bangkok apartment, grading papers and planning lessons, I think about legacy and family and what it means to truly exist. Rebecca had thought she could erase me with paperwork and lies, but she had failed to understand something fundamental. Our existence isn't defined by legal documents or inheritance money or society's approval. We exist in the lives we touch, the choices we make, and the truth we choose to live. And no one, not even family, has the power to take that away.